In this video, I'm going to show you how to create graphs of qualitative data when you have the data themselves and not a summary of the data. In other words, I have the responses of each individual. One of the questions that I like to ask individuals in a class is, what type of pet do you prefer? Do you prefer dogs? Do you prefer cats? Both? Neither? I've asked this over the years, and the data, when I want to load my data, remember I go to load data from a file. The file is located on my computer. I need to browse, and this file is named pet preference. So double click on the file, go down to the bottom of the page and click on load file. So over the years I have asked, let's see what we're up to now, 92 students their preference about pets. Each of these rows represents an individual. That's why I say we have the data and not a summary of the data. This doesn't give us how many individuals were dog people. What it says is that person 1 was a female who preferred dogs. Person 2 was a female who preferred dogs. Person 19 was a female that preferred cats. So I have the actual data and not a summary. To create a graph, a bar chart or a pie chart of this data, I go to click on graphics, and let's construct a bar plot. We have the two options, with data or with summary. In this case we have the data. Select the column that you want to represent. We want to represent pet preference, and create graph. So what we have is a bar plot, a bar graph, of the data that are in the pet preference column. We have approximately 14 to 15 both people, about 11 to 12 who prefer cats, over 60 that prefer dogs, and about 5 or 6 that prefer neither. Now, rather than guesstimating how many are in each category, if I select options, remember you can always select options to pick different options for the graphs. Click on edit. It takes me back to the pop-up window. If I go to next, notice again I can pick different types of bar graphs. I could pick frequency, relative frequency, a percent graph, and so forth. But one of the other options is I could have the graph display the values above the bars. Click Create Graph, and notice that the StatCrunch created the graph, but also now provides the counts above each of these categories. 14 of the individuals that I surveyed prefer both cats and dogs. 12 prefer cats only. 61 prefer dogs only, and 5 prefer neither. Now, the last comment I have about these sorts of graphs. From the shape of this graph, you may be tempted to see that you have a normal distribution. But notice, if I select options and edit, that I can change the way that the graph is depicted. This graph says value ascending. Value in this case is basically the first letter of its alphabetical order. B for both, C, D, and N. If I picked count ascending and create graph, what it does, the StatCrunch creates the graph, but creates it in ascending order of counts of categories. The neither has the fewest number of values, up to dogs has the most. When you do that, you might be tempted to say that this graph is skewed in a negative direction. But I could also edit and pick count descending, create graph, and voila, the graph is skewed in a positive direction. One of the questions in the PowerPoint file, the representing data PowerPoint file, asks about the positions of the bars. What this implies is that for qualitative data, to talk about shape is really meaningless, because these categories are simply categories. You can position them however you want. You can position them to look normal, to look skewed, or whatever you want them to look. So shape is not a feature that we talk about when it comes to qualitative graphs.